How's it going, everybody? This is BeatTheBush. Today, let's talk about paying more into your mortgage in order to save on the interest. If you're lucky enough to have a mortgage, and if you're lucky enough to have enough money to pay more into your mortgage, then this is a really good headache to have, because that means you're actually cash positive and that you have saved up plenty of money. You paid off all your credit card debt, all your student loans, and then on top of that you have an emergency fund, 6 months to 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, whatever you're comfortable with. And then on top of that you have some money on top of that, and you want to pay more into your mortgage, which is good. Let's use my favorite example of the average home price, which is 188K. So let's just round that to 200K. You put 20% down, which is $40,000 that you've saved up in order to put a down payment into the home. And then you have fairly good credit, so you get 4%, 30-year fixed rate loan here. And so right when you buy the home, you owe the bank $160,000. Now all these numbers you can multiply by 2 or 3 or 4 depending on the size of your home. If you have an $800,000 home, which is what it is around here in the Bay Area, then you multiply all these numbers by 4. And so you owe the bank 160K a year. Every single year you have to pay 4% roughly in interest. You just multiply that because it's roughly accurate if you just do it 1 year. 1% of this amount that you owe is 1.6K. You times that by 4, which is $6,400 that you're paying. So all this money that is wasted in interest because you owe the bank some money. You might say, oh yeah, this amount, you can deduct it, but you're still paying 3/4 of that out of your pocket. Wouldn't it be better to not pay that or pay a reduction of this amount? Now I come to the point that if you've been getting a job and you've been working and paying off, being financially responsible, you should have had no credit card debt, and you probably paid off all your student loans too. And then perhaps you have a bunch of cash saved up too, and that's enough for your emergency fund and then some. And then you're like, oh yeah, I got some money. I don't know what to do with it. I want to, invest in something. Maybe you invest in the stock market, maybe you invest in this peer-to-peer lending thing that I don't recommend. And then you start to think about if I should just pay more into the mortgage. When you put money into your mortgage, you automatically know you're not going to pay that 4% interest anymore. For example, if you put in $10,000 here, you're gonna know for sure that you're going to save 4% of $10,000 in interest just the first year. And it just keeps on compounding after that. You're gonna save every single year thereafter until you pay the loan off. So it becomes a very good deal. And at the same time, it becomes not a very good deal because it's only 4%. The thing you have to know about paying into your mortgage is that once you put money into it, it's very hard to take it back out. It's kind of like locked dead in there until maybe you sell the home, or maybe you get a second mortgage or something, or like do some sort of cash out refinancing or something. So once you put it in there, it's kind of like it's a one-way street and it's very hard to go the other way. So if you're going to put money in there, you gotta make sure you paid off all this stuff that are higher interest. On top of that, you have a lot saved up because you're for certain that you won't need this cash in the future. Let's say you have $10,000 on top of emergency fund, whatever amount you're comfortable with. The question comes down to, can you make more than your mortgage interest rate if you take that $10,000 and invest it somehow? If you have extra cash around and you're not doing anything with it, and you know that you won't be doing anything with it, this is the amount that's over your emergency savings, okay? Then it might be good to pay into your mortgage because it's just sitting there and doing nothing. However, you can take that amount and invest it in any number of ways. Maybe you buy bonds, or maybe you buy the Smp Index. Then you should be able to get more than 4%. When you have an option of getting more, okay, that means choosing that will get you more in the end. However, when you invest it, of course, there's always risks. So think of it this way, you owe the bank 160K at 4%. Now, if you're so confident in investing, okay, if you're a really good investor, would you borrow another 160K from the bank, and let's say they give you a 4% interest rate, they just let you take it out in cash? Would you do that and put it in the stock market? Now, when you think of it that way, you might get a little edgy here because you're like, oh, I don't want to borrow that much. What if something happens to it? Yeah, that's exactly the deal here, because when you take that money out, it involves risks, because sometimes you could lose money in even the S&P here, and you might end up with less than 160K and then you owe the bank more money. So to pay into it or not is really your confidence if you should invest it instead. Now let me convince you that an S&P ETF fund might be a good idea. It usually has low fees and it buys stock in the S&P index. Investing in an index is supposed to be relatively safe, but still, you don't know what's going to happen. There are some risks involved, but let me show you why. Over here, I've written down the gains that you would get in the S&P for the last 10 years. You can see in 2016, it's made to 5.8% so far. This is towards the end of the year, so you know it's going to be around there somewhere, maybe. And in 2015, it's 1.4%. Let's go back in 1 year at a time here, 13.7%, whopping 32.4%. In 2013, that's crazy, way more than 4%, right? And 16%, 2.1%, 15.1%, 26.5%, and in 2008 it was minus 37%. So can you imagine taking the 160K out and all of a sudden it drops by 40%? Would probably go from 160K all the way down to 100K. You would feel not very good when that happens. So these things do happen and we don't know what's going to happen here. However, if you wait long enough, right, you borrow that 160K, you wait 1 year, 2 year, and then it kind of made up for it. So it'll take maybe 2 or 3 years before you can make the gains back. And likely you might get a bit scared after you invest 160K down, you see it keep on tumbling and it goes all the way down to 100K. There's a lot of psychology involved and a lot of people do sell at this low point because they're scared. So they tell you to just keep on holding on to it, and if you do, you'll be rewarded by, you know, it popping back and doing just fine. And the 1 year before that is 5.5%. And then you might wonder, how does the S&P average over, you know, the long run? 1928 to 2014 here, S&P average about 10% every single year. When you adjust for inflation, it's still 7% gain per year. Let's say you hold it for 30 years and you have a good chance, a very, very good chance that you're going to make more than the 4%, even adjusting for inflation. So if you never pay off your mortgage and just hold that money, if you have some extra cash, you're going to make at least 3% on average over what you have to pay the interest rate on your mortgage. So that's a theory, and you can never predict what really happens. Maybe next year it might be a 2008. You don't know. Strictly number-wise, you would not pay into the mortgage and actually invest it. However, like any portfolio, you don't want to go all into one thing, okay? Because what if something bad happens? So if you have way too much money, you might want to pay a little bit into the mortgage or pay a little bit more. Let's go back to the original example, and let's say suddenly right after you start the mortgage, you somehow get a windfall of 160K. Maybe you win the lottery, you win something, or inheritance or something like that. So you only have exactly 160K. Should you take that and just plop it in there and just completely kill off your mortgage, and then you don't have a mortgage? Which is really great, by the way, if you want to retire, because you never want a huge negative cash flow when you retire. Because if you cancel this out, then you need really, really little in order to live on, because you don't have to pay for your living situation. Certainly, if you only have 160K, just enough to cover your mortgage, I recommend certainly do not pay it off, because you need to have some emergency cash. It's good because you could use it to buy another property if there's a downturn or something, and also it's good to hold on to it for any kind of emergencies, for living expenses in case of unemployment or anything like that. However, let's say somehow you inherited twice as much as that, 320K. Then I would recommend to completely pay that off, because then you can pay off your home and then you still have a lot of cash sitting around for your living expenses, and all of a sudden any money that you make, you don't have to take some out and put it in the mortgage. Of course, some might not agree with this, because maybe some people might say, hey, if you have 320K in cash, why not just buy more property with it and then rent those out, and then you keep all of them kind of on a mortgage and then they pay for themselves. Yes, you can do that, but it does not give you the peace of mind of paying off your home and fully owning it. There's something to be said about living in a place that you fully own and the bank isn't chasing you down for the mortgage payment, because if you ever default because of people not renting your other places and then you don't have enough cash to play, then you get kicked out of your home. So if you actually own it, you feel more secure. So this is kind of like a security thing, like a thing that helps you sleep well at night type of thing. Having this sort of security is sort of priceless to some people. So that's all I have for you for today. I hope you enjoyed this analysis and this helps you know if you should pay off more of your mortgage if you have some extra cash laying around. Don't forget to give me a like over here, comment down below. Let me know what you decide to do, and don't forget to subscribe over here. Thanks for watching.